Hello everybody, today I'm going to be reading the YouTube Terms of Service and Privacy Policy because I literally have nothing else to upload, and I don't know, I thought it'd be interesting, and maybe it's one of those things where if you do something stupid enough, you go viral, right? Um, Terms of Service dated November 18th, 2020. Welcome to YouTube. Introduction. Thank you for using the YouTube platform and the products, services, and features we make available to you as part of the platform, collectively the service. Our service. The service allows you to discover, watch, and share videos and other content. It provides a forum for people to connect, inform, and inspire others across the globe, and acts as a distribution platform for original content creators and advertisers, large and small. We provide lots of information about our products and how to use them in our help center. Among other things, you can find out about YouTube Kids, the YouTube Partner Program, and YouTube paid memberships and purchases, where available. You can also read all about enjoying content on other devices like your television, your games console, or Google Home. Your service provider. The entity providing the service is Google LLC, a company operating under the laws of Delaware, located at 1600 Amphitheater Parkway, Mountain View, California, 94043, referred to as YouTube, we, us, or our. References to YouTube's affiliates in this terms means the other companies within the Alphabet Inc. corporate group, now or in the future. For those of you who don't know, Alphabet Inc. is the company that owns Google as a subsidy, I don't know, something like that. Applicable terms. Your use of the service is subject to these terms: the YouTube community guidelines, the policy, safety, and copyright policies. I think that's this. No. There's more. Which may be updated from time to time. Together, this agreement, your agreement with us. So the YouTube community guidelines and policy, safety and copyright policies are the agreement. Your agreement with us will also include the advertising on YouTube policies if you provide advertising or sponsorships to the service or incorporate paid promotions in your content. Any other links or references provided in these terms are for informational use only and are not part of the agreement. Please read this agreement carefully and make sure you understand it. If you do not understand the agreement or do not accept any part of it, then you may not use the service. Yeah, so I'm pretty sure nobody really reads this ever. I know I haven't before, but now I have, so hey, can't prosecute me for not understanding the agreement, because I do understand it now. Who may use the service? Age requirements. You must be at least 13 years old to use the service. However, children of all ages may use YouTube Kids where available if enabled by a parent or legal guardian. This is an interesting thing to add to the terms because I don't think they've ever enforced this rule. I don't think I've ever heard of anyone being banned for being under 13 on the site. Permission by parent or guardian. If you are under 18, you represent that you have your parent or guardian's permission to use the service. Please have them read this agreement with you. If you are a parent or legal guardian of a user under the age of 18, by allowing your child to use the service, you are subject to the terms of this agreement and responsible for your child's activity on this service. You can find tools and resources to help you manage your family's experience on YouTube and our Help Center and through Google's Family Link. So actually, something has occurred to me, and as far as the part as you must be at least 13 years old to use the service, that might actually just be kind of a bogus thing that they say to dodge and comply with COPPA laws. If I had to guess, I would say that if you don't know what COPPA is, it's like Child Online Protection and Privacy Act or something along those lines. It's an legal thing in the U.S. to make the internet safer for children. At least that's its goal. So that might just be a COPPA thing. Businesses. If you are using the service on behalf of a company or organization, you represent that you have authority to act on behalf of that entity and that such entity accepts this agreement. That makes sense. So basically, yeah. Your use of the service. Content on the service. The content of the service includes videos, audio, for example, music and other sounds, graphics, photos, text, such as comments and scripts, branding, including trade names, trademarks, service marks, or logos, interactive features, software, metrics, and other materials, whether provided by you, YouTube, or a third party, collectively content. Content is the responsibility of the person or entity that provides it to the service. YouTube is under no obligation to host or serve content. If you see any content you believe does not comply with this agreement, including by violating the community guidelines or the law, you can report it to us. Google accounts and YouTube channels. You can use part of this service, such as browsing. You can use parts of the service, such as browsing or searching for content, without having a Google account. However, you do need a Google account to use some features. With a Google account, you may be able to like videos, subscribe to channels, create your own YouTube channel, and more. You can follow these instructions to create a Google account. I don't know why I'm struggling to say Google so much. Creating a YouTube channel will give you access to additional features and functions, such as uploading videos, making comments, or creating playlists where available. Here are some details about how to create your own YouTube channel. Creating playlists where available implies that YouTube playlists aren't available worldwide, which is kind of strange to me. That seems like a weird thing to restrict, but I don't know, some governments are weird like that. To protect your Google account, keep your password confidential. You should not reuse your Google account password on third-party applications. Learn more about keeping your Google account secure, including what to do if you learn of any unauthorized use of your password or Google account. Your information. Our privacy policy explains how we treat your personal data and protect your privacy when you use the service. The YouTube Kids Privacy Notice provides additional information about our privacy practices that are specific to YouTube Kids. We will process any audio or audio-visual content uploaded by you to the service in accordance with the YouTube data processing terms, except in cases where you uploaded such content for personal purposes or household activities. That's actually kind of interesting, because that is pretty interesting. So that implies that there's a set of rules, which sounds like the YouTube data processing terms, except if you upload the video, and what it sounds like for personal purposes or household activities implies that it would be unlisted or private. I'd have to check to be sure. That's why I'm opening all these new tabs in the background. So that's interesting. I was wondering about that, how that works. Like, if you could upload copyrighted. No, I think they still do copyright takedowns, but like if you could upload maybe something that violates this. It sounds like it's pretty specific terms, though, so you still probably couldn't upload anything too inappropriate, but I don't know. Permissions and restrictions. You may access and use the service as made available to you as long as you comply with this agreement and applicable law. You may view or listen to content for your personal, non-commercial use. You may also show YouTube videos through the embeddable YouTube player. If you don't know what that means, it's like when you have that little YouTube window on a different site that's not YouTube. That's embedded content, or an embedded video. The following restrictions apply to your use of the service. You are not allowed to access, reproduce, download, distribute, transmit, broadcast, display, sell, license, alter, modify, or otherwise use any part of the service or any content except as expressly I'm struggling with this one. Too many words. Except A, as expressly authorized by the service, or B, with prior written permission from YouTube and, if applicable, the respective rights holders. 2. Circumvent, disable, fraudulently engage with, or otherwise interfere with any part of the service, or attempt to do any of these things, including security-related features or features that A, prevent or restrict the copying or other use of content, or B, limit the use of the service or content. 3. Access the service using any automated means, such as robots, botnets, or scrapers, except A, in the case of public search engines in accordance with YouTube's robots.txt file, or B, with YouTube's prior written permission. This makes sense. What it's saying is basically you can't run any bots on their site, any script, anything like that. It has to be a real person accessing YouTube, unless it's what a scraper is, or a crawler is, like when a search engine. You know how if you search like YouTube, you get that little description below it that says, like, welcome to YouTube, we have so many videos for you, you can watch 4 million videos or whatever. Um, what does that is a program that goes across every site and looks for information like that, but every site hosts something called a robots.txt, well, almost every site, most big sites, that tells those programs what to ignore and what not to put in the search results. So if you bypass that robots.txt, that is not allowed. 4. Collect or harvest any information that might identify a person, for example, usernames or faces, unless permitted by that person or allowed under Section 3 above. That is really interesting. Even usernames, like I don't know if that means online usernames and stuff, because I mean, there's videos of people like exposing people, I believe, and I don't think they always censor the usernames, so I guess that's not allowed. So that's definitely something interesting that I didn't really know. I thought you could, if you wanted to, like, you could expose someone's Discord username, I thought, but that makes sense why they don't, because that could lead to a lot of harm. 5. Use the service to distribute unsolicited promotional or commercial content or other unwanted or mass solicitations. Unsolicited promotional. I think that just means, like, yeah, I think that just means, like, illegal stuff, like, meet up with me here and I'll give you drugs or whatever. Something like that. Like, I'll sell you drugs if you come to my apartment at blah 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 blah. Something like that. I think that's what that means, is unsolicited promotional. Oh, you know what? Unsolicited might just mean that stuff that doesn't go through them, maybe? Like, if Raid Shadow Legends wants to sponsor my video, then I have to make sure that little box pops up that says, this video has sponsored content. Because I think that is definitely a rule. That might be what that's trying to say. I'm not exactly sure what that means right there, but 6. Cause or encourage any inaccurate measurements of a genuine user engagement with a service, including by paying people or providing them with incentives to increase a video's views, likes, or dislikes, or to increase a channel's subscribers, or otherwise manipulate metrics in any manner. This is just a lot of lingo for don't make like bots, don't pay people to like and subscribe, you know. Which is pretty obvious that that's a rule. That makes sense. 7. Misuse any reporting, flagging, complaint, dispute, or appeals process including by making groundless, vexatious, I don't know what that means, or frivolous submissions. I think frivolous means often. And I know groundless just means that it's based on nothing. Voice crack. But that's a pretty easy one. Is, again, don't copyright claim videos that you don't actually have copyright to. I believe that is illegal. I don't know for sure, but I believe that is illegal to claim copyright status of something you don't own, and don't report people if they're not actually doing anything wrong. That's a pretty obvious one, because then YouTube has to pay someone to sort through all these false reports just to get to real ones and improve their service. That's pretty easy. 8. Run contests on or through the service that do not comply with YouTube's contest policies and guidelines. Again, makes sense. They don't want people rigging giveaways, because a lot of times people say, subscribe to me for a free giveaway, and then they just give the card to their friend, or give whatever giveaway item to their friend or themselves, or they just don't do it. 9. Here we go. Man, I really need to get a drink soon. Use the service to view or listen to content from other than for personal, non-commercial use. For example, you may not publicly screen videos or stream music from the service, or use the service to view or listen to content for other than personal, non-commercial use. Oh. That's interesting. Oh, yeah, so if you were like, oh, that kind of makes sense. So if you were like DJing at a party or something, you couldn't just, you quote-unquote, if you were DJing from a party and making money off it, because that'd be non-commercial, or that'd be other than non-commercial, you're not supposed to play from YouTube. Which makes sense, because they don't want people profiting off their service, but Yeah. Yeah, so basically if you can't charge people to make them pay for YouTube. Yeah, you can't charge people to watch YouTube videos. That makes sense. Or 10, use the service to A, sell any advertising, sponsorships, or promotions placed on, around, or within the service or content other than those allowed in the advertising on YouTube policies, such as compliant product placements. Or B, sell advertising, sponsorships, or promotions on any page of any website or application that only contains content from the service or where content from the service is the primary basis for such sales. For example, selling ads on a web page where YouTube videos are the main draw for users visiting the website. This makes sense. They're basically saying if you can't sell advertisements and you can't sponsor things that don't go through the YouTube advertising guidelines, and you can't use circumvention measures like making voidfrost.com and then putting all the voidfrost videos on voidfrost.com and then putting ads on there that don't. Yeah, that makes sense. Okay. That putting ads on there that don't agree with the YouTube ones. Reservation. Using the service does not give you ownership of or rights to any aspect of the service, including usernames or any other content posted by others or YouTube. That's pretty basic. That's just saying you don't own your channel, you don't own your username, you don't own any content on this site besides yours, maybe? It hasn't really said about your content and whether you own it or if they own it as soon as you give it to them. I'm assuming you own it, but it's not said yet, but it will soon, I would think. Changes to the service. YouTube is constantly changing and improving the service. We may also need to alter or discontinue the service or any part of it in order to make performance or security improvements, change functionality and features, make changes to comply with law, or prevent illegal activities on or abuse of our systems. These changes may affect all users, some users, or even an individual user. Whenever reasonably possible, we will provide notice when we discontinue or make material changes to our service that will have an adverse impact on the use of our service. However, you understand and agree that there will be times when we make such changes without notice, such as where we feel need to take action to improve the security and operability of our service, prevent abuse, or comply with legal requirements. That's pretty basic. Your content and conduct. Man, I think we're finally over the halfway mark. Maybe we're right at halfway. Man, this thing's long. Your content and conduct. Uploading content. If you have a YouTube channel, you may be able to upload content to the service. You may use your content to promote your business or artistic enterprise. If you choose to upload content, you must not submit it to the service. Any content that does not comply with this agreement, including the YouTube community guidelines. I've probably already opened this. I have. Or the law. For example, the content you submit must not include third-party intellectual property, such as copyrighted material, unless you have permission from that party or are otherwise legally entitled to do so. You are legally responsible for the content you submit to the service. We may use automated systems that analyze your content to help detect infringement and abuse, such as spam, malware, and illegal content. Again, pretty straightforward, not much explaining to do on that one. Just follow YouTube guidelines and the law when you're uploading videos. Don't upload malware to YouTube. It's pretty basic. Rights you grant. You retain ownership rights in your content. However, we do require you to grant certain rights to YouTube and other users of the service as described below. So that answers our question. When you upload a video to YouTube, you do still contain complete ownership of the video, which makes sense because otherwise I don't think they would have a lot of users if they just went full corporation mode and just took everyone's video. Like, as soon as you upload the video, you lose all rights to the video. You can't take it down. You can't do anything with it. That would very much drive away people from their platform. License to YouTube. By providing content to the service, you grant to YouTube a worldwide, non-exclusive, royalty-free, sub-licensable, and transferable license to use that content, including to reproduce, distribute, prepare derivative works, display, and perform it in connection with the service and YouTube's and its successors and affiliates' business, including for the purpose of promoting and redistributing part or all of the service. So, as you still own your content, you can't stop YouTube from using it. They can reproduce, distribute it, they can do whatever they want with it, pretty much. License to other users. You also grant each other user of the service a worldwide, non-exclusive, royalty-free license to access your content through the service and to use that content, including to reproduce, distribute, prepare derivative works, display, and perform it, only as enabled by a feature of the service, such as video playback or embeds. For clarity, this license does not grant any rights or permissions for a user to make use of your content independent of the service. Okay, so other people can view your videos and watch them, of course, and they can do whatever they want with them as long as it falls in this agreement, I believe. Yeah. As long as YouTube allows it, they can do whatever they want with it, too. But YouTube restricts other people more than they restrict themselves, I'm sure. Duration of license. The licenses granted by you continue for a commercially reasonable period of time after you remove or delete your content from the service. You understand and agree, however, that YouTube may retain but not display, distribute, or perform server copies of your videos that have been removed or deleted. That's actually kind of nice. I was really not expecting that to be a thing. I was expecting it to be like, we have it on our servers, we can do whatever we want with it still, since you did grant us that permission. But that is kind of nice. When you delete your videos, content, whatever, YouTube may retain but not display, distribute, or perform. So they can't really display it. They can store it, but they can't do anything else. They can't even display it, so they can't even like view it, I don't think. Well, display might mean like display to a lot of people. I bet they can view it still, since it is on their server. Right to monetize. You grant to YouTube the right to monetize your content on the service, and such monetization may include displaying ads on or within content or charging a user's fee for access. Users a fee for access. This agreement does not entitle you to any payments, so they can monetize your videos without paying you if they want to, if they feel like it, which I think they started doing now, but I'm not sure. Starting November 18th, 2020, any payments you may be entitled to receive from YouTube under any other agreement between you and YouTube, including, for example, payments under the YouTube Partner Program, channel memberships, or Super Chat, will be treated as royalties. If required by law, Google will withhold taxes from such payments. So does that mean you have to pay the tax for it, or does that mean nobody has to pay for the tax for it? I think that means you have to pay the tax for it, which kind of sucks, but whatever. Reasonable. Although that sounds like a relatively new policy. So all they do instead of just paying you now is they treat it as a royalty to use your content, even though they have the right to not royalty-free license. But that's kind of weird. But yeah, makes sense, I think. Removing your content. You may remove your content from the service at any time. You also have the option to make a copy of your content before removing it. You must remove your content if you no longer have the rights required by these terms. Makes sense. If a third party revokes your access to the video, you gotta delete it. Removal of content by YouTube. If we reasonably believe that any content is in breach of this agreement or may cause harm to YouTube, our users, or third parties, we may remove or take down that content in our discretion. We will notify you with the reason for our action unless we reasonably believe that to do so, A, would breach the law or the direction of a legal enforcement authority, or would otherwise risk legal liability for YouTube or our affiliates, B, would compromise an investigation or the integrity or operation of the service, or C, would cause harm to any user, other third party, YouTube, or our affiliates. You can learn more about reporting and enforcement, including how to appeal, on the troubleshooting pages of our help center. Makes sense. So if there's an investigation going on and they want to take down your video because it's being used as evidence, then they don't have to tell you that it's being used as evidence, because then you'd be suspicious and might try to do something irrational. Man, I gotta clear my throat. Kind Copyright protection. We provide information to help copyright holders manage their intellectual property online in our YouTube Copyright Center. If you believe our copyright has been infringed on the service, please send us a notice. Intellectual... That's interesting. We respond to notices of alleged copyright infringement. Infringement? I'm saying that right. Infringement. Copyright infringement. 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 It's infringement. Yeah, I don't know why I'm getting so hung up on that. According to the process in our YouTube Copyright Center, where you can also find information about how to resolve a copyright strike. YouTube's policies provide for the termination in appropriate circumstances or repeat infringers access to the service. Account suspension and termination. Terminations by you. You may stop using the service at any time. Follow these instructions to delete the service from your Google account, which involves closing your YouTube channel and removing your data. You also have the option to download a copy of your data first, so you can wipe all your data. Nice. It doesn't note if they keep your data on their server or not. But if I had to guess, I'd say they would, just because companies like pretty much keeping all the data that they can. But at the same time, it's unrestorable, so they really don't have much reason to. But it might clarify that later. Terminations and suspensions by YouTube for cause. YouTube may suspend or terminate your access, your Google account, or your Google account's access to all or part of the service if you A. materially or repeatedly breach this agreement, B. you're required to do so to comply with a legal requirement or a court order, or C. we believe there has been conduct that creates or could create liability or harm to any user, other third party, YouTube, or our affiliates. Terminations by YouTube for service changes. YouTube may terminate your access or your Google account's access to all or part of the service if YouTube believes, in its sole discretion, that provision of the service to you is no longer commercially viable. This was a really big controversy when it first was added to the terms of service, because literally all it says is that if you're not making money, they can just wipe you off the face of their platform. If they feel like it. That's what they say. In its sole discretion, that provision of the service to you is no longer commercially viable. Which, what that means is if you're not making any money for them, they don't have to keep you on their site. They can just kick you off for literally no reason. Except here, it does say they will give you a reason for termination, unless they reasonably believe that, blah, 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 blah. I'll get to that in a second. But their reason could just be because we felt like it, and you'd have nothing that you could do there, because they have sole discretion as long as you're not making them money. If you're making them money, then it's, I suppose you don't fall under that. They can't just ban you for whatever. They have to have a valid reason. You have to have broken this agreement. Other than that, they can just kick you off because they don't like you, which, I mean, I don't know. They're a private company. They reserve the right to do that. I wouldn't agree with it if they just started booting a ton of creators just because they didn't like them personally. But as a private company in the United States or wherever, I know at least in the United States, they can just kick you off if they feel like it, and that's their right. But that'd get a lot of public backlash, so I haven't heard of that being done at all, which is nice, because that'd be kind of bad if they started doing that all the time. Notice for termination or suspension. We will notify you with the reason for termination or suspension by YouTube unless we reasonably believe that to do so, A, would violate the law or the direction of a legal enforcement authority, or would otherwise risk legal liability for YouTube or our affiliates, B, would compromise an investigation or the integrity of the operation of the service, or C, would cause harm to any user, other third-party YouTube, or our affiliates. Where YouTube is terminating your access for service changes, where reasonably possible, you will be provided with sufficient time to export your content from the service. That's very nice. So what they're saying is when they just boot you for pretty much for no reason, if they want to, they give you reasonable time to get all your videos and all that off there. I'm not sure if they did that just because they're nice or if they did that because they were forced to by law, but that is pretty nice that they let you do that. That's pretty sweet. So while they can just boot your channel, all your videos don't really go away. You can still download them all. Effective account suspension or termination. If your Google account is terminated or your Google account's access to the service is restricted, you may continue using certain aspects of the service, such as viewing only, without an account, and this agreement will continue to apply to such use. If you believe your Google account has been terminated in error, you can appeal using this form. About software in the service. Downloadable software. When the service requires or includes downloadable software, such as the YouTube Studio application. They have a downloadable YouTube Studio application? I've literally never heard that in my life. I thought it was all web-based. I'll have to look that up. You give permission for that software to update automatically on your device once a new version or feature is available, subject to your device settings. Unless that software is governed by additional terms which provide a license, YouTube gives you a personal, worldwide, royalty-free, non-assignable, non-exclusive license to use the software provided to you by YouTube as part of the service. This license is for the sole purpose of enabling you to use and enjoy the benefit of the service as provided by YouTube in the manner permitted by this agreement. You are not allowed to copy, modify, distribute, sell, or lease any part of the software, or to reverse engineer or attempt to extract the source code of the software unless laws prohibit these restrictions or you have YouTube's written permission. Open source. Some software used in our service may be offered under an open source license that we make available to you. There may be provisions in an open source license that expressly override some of these terms, so please be sure to read those licenses. I probably won't be doing that in a video because that probably will be pretty boring. Man, this thing is long. What a beast of an agreement. Wow, this is gonna be like a 30-minute longer video. Other legal terms. Warranty disclaimer. Other than as expressly stated in this agreement or as required by law, the service is provided as is, and YouTube does not make any specific commitments or warranties about the service. For example, we don't make any warranties about the content, the content provided through the service, B, the specific features of the service or its accuracy, reliability, availability, or ability to meet your needs, or C, that any content you submit will be accessible in the service. So that's just saying we don't guarantee anything. We can't guarantee the service will be great. We can't guarantee the service will meet your needs. And we can't guarantee that the video that you submit will be accessible to anyone at all. So that's just saying we don't take any liability, which is very smart because, oh hey, this says no liability as well. Except as required as applicable law, YouTube, its affiliates, officers, directors, employees, and agents will not be responsible for any loss of profits, revenues, business opportunities, goodwill, or anticipated savings, loss or corruption of data, indirect or consequential loss, punitive damages caused by errors, I don't know what that means at all, caused by errors, mistakes, or inaccuracies in the service, personal injury or property damage resulting from your use of the service, any unauthorized access to or use of the service, any interruption or cessation of the service, any viruses or malicious code transmitted to or through the service and by any third party, any content whether submitted by a user on YouTube, including your use of content and/or the removal or unavailability of any content. This provision applies to any claim, regardless of whether the claim asserted is based on warranty, contract, tort, or any other legal theory. YouTube and its affiliates' total liability for any claims arising from or relating to the service is limited to the greater of A, the amount of revenue that YouTube has paid to you from your use of the service in the 12 months before the date of your notice in writing to YouTube of the claim, and B, USD 500. I don't really know what that means. I think it just means that we're not responsible for any legal claims falling under these, and the total liability for any claims is no more than $500. So I suppose that means if I tried to sue YouTube, the max I'm getting is $500. I believe that's what that means. Correct me if I'm wrong if you know what you're talking about, because I sure don't. Indemnity. I don't know what that means. To the extent permitted by applicable law, you agree to defend, indemnify, and hold harmless YouTube, its affiliates, officers, directors, employees, and agents from against any and all claims, damages, obligations, losses, liabilities, costs, or debt and expenses, including but not limited to attorney's fees arising from your use and access of the service, your violation of any term of this agreement, your violation of any third-party right, including without limitation, any copyright, property, or privacy right, or four, any claim that your content caused damage to a third party. This defense and an indemnification obligation will survive this agreement and your use of the service. I think that just means if someone sues you for a video, you're on your own. We're not helping you. Yeah. Yep, that's exactly what that means. That means that you hold YouTube to be harmless and you hold to defend YouTube. If someone sues you, then you can't just say, nope, not my problem, YouTube problems. You gotta say, yep, it's my thing, YouTube is in the right. Obviously, there's an extent to that, but, you know. Third-party links. This service may contain links to third-party websites and online services that are not owned or controlled by YouTube. YouTube has no control over and assumes no responsibility for such websites and online services. Be aware when you leave the service, we suggest you read the terms and privacy policy of each third-party website and online service that you visit. You can suggest that, but nobody does this. I might be one of the first people to read this agreement ever in the planet Earth. I think I might be. I guarantee that I bet less than 10% of the users of this site have read this. I would really not be surprised. I bet at least 90% people do not read this. About this agreement, modifying this agreement. We may modify this agreement, for example, to reflect changes to our service or for legal, regulatory, or security reasons. YouTube will provide reasonable advance notice of any material modifications to this agreement and the opportunity to review them, except that modifications addressing newly available features of the service or modifications made for legal reasons may be effective immediately without notice. Modifications to this agreement will only apply going forward. If you do not agree to the modified terms, you should remove any content you have uploaded and discontinue use of the service. Basically, we can change this agreement as much as we want. If you don't like it, quit. Don't upload. Delete all your stuff and delete your channel. Continuation of this agreement. If your use of this service ends, the following terms of this agreement will continue to apply to you. Other legal terms about this agreement and the license granted by you will continue as described under duration of license. So basically, even if you end the service, that means they can still use your content, I believe. Unless... yeah, I think they can still store your content, but they can't display it since it's deleted. We went over that. Severance. If it turns out that a particular term of this agreement is not enforceable for any reason, this will not affect any other terms. Makes sense? So the whole agreement isn't invalid just because part of it is invalid. No waiver. If you fail to comply with this agreement and we do not take immediate action, this does not mean that we are giving up any rights that we may have, such as the right to take action in the future. You can... yeah, okay. So they don't have to act immediately. They could let you break the terms for a whole year and then ban you out of nowhere. Interpretation. In these terms, include or including means including but not limited to, and any examples we give are for illustrative purposes. Governing laws. All claims arising out of or relating to these terms of service will be governed by California law, except California's conflict of law rules, and will be litigated exclusively in the federal or state courts of Santa Clara County, California, USA. You and YouTube consent to personal jurisdiction in those courts. My voice is getting really hoarse, if you can't tell. I really need a drink of water after this. I'm normally very dehydrated, but I also don't talk this much, this fast, for this long. Limitation on legal action. You and YouTube agree that any cause of action rising out of or related to their services must commence within 1 year after the cause of the action occurs. Otherwise, such cause of action is permanently barred. Makes sense? So you can't just sue them 5 years after an incident. It has to be within 1 year. So that completes my reading of YouTube's terms of service. I hope you find that kind of interesting. It was very interesting to me. I liked it. My voice is really hoarse right now. and I'm gonna go get a glass of water. I might read other sites too, because like some of the more controversial sites, people hate YouTube sometimes just because like they're a big corporation and they do some questionable things. People don't like their copyright very much. They do some controversial things. Facebook's a big one. Most social medias are going to be very interesting. I don't know. Maybe I should continue this. Maybe I shouldn't. Even if everyone finds it boring, I might still do it because I kind of like it. So I might upload like a highlight reel of the most interesting parts of this. Or not. I don't really know. But I will see you next time. Peace.